Welcome to another edition of the Sports Lunatics, a somber edition. Hi, I'm Shawn Lavigne in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
And I'm Howie Mooney in Barrie, Ontario.
And we have just found out in the last hour that Bob Cole, the legendary Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, has passed away at the age of 90. And as somebody, Howie, put on our Facebook, he was the golden voice of our generation. And multiple generations growing up across Canada, because Hockey Night in Canada every Saturday night was an institution. And especially in your era, in my era, in your son's era, that was the thing to do on a Saturday night. And we had the pleasure of listening to Bob Cole for many decades.
He was the soundtrack of our generation. He started off in Newfoundland on VOCM, moved up to CBC Radio in '69. He did the CBC Radio play-by-play for the Canada-Russia series in '72. In '73, he began doing Hockey Night in Canada games on TV. And in one of the most famous moments of his career in 1976, during the Red Army and Philadelphia game, after Ed Van Impe had crushed, not really crushed, but he laid a hard check on Valery Harlamov. The Russians left the ice, and Bob Cole's great quote, "They're going home, folks. They're going home." I mean, those are the things that I remember of Bob Cole. I mean, he continued until into his 80s doing play-by-play. In 2013, Sportsnet Rogers got the rights to do NHL games across Canada for television and digital. And they didn't really tell Bob Cole whether he was part of the deal or not until a couple of months before the 2014 season, when their contract kicked in. Finally, in June of 2014, they called Bob and said, "We'd like you to be a part of our team." He was not part of the A team anymore. Jim Houston was by then, but he was still doing games, and he did them until 2018.
Yeah, just a remarkable career. Some other highlights of, he was our voice of those historic moments. The last time a Canadian team has won a Stanley Cup, we've talked about it 1,000 times. You were there at the Montreal Forum, but Bob Cole was the voice on that call. Of course, Canada winning a gold medal in 2002. Bob Cole was the man to call it. Historically, the closing of Maple Leaf Gardens, Bob Cole was there to call it. There was just so much history, hockey history, Canadian sports history, that Bob Cole was a part of. And, being in media for as long as I was, had a chance to talk to him a couple of times. And just, I could listen to Bob Cole tell stories all day long. Just a remarkable man, of course, born and raised in Newfoundland. And, Foster Hewitt was his inspiration, his mentor, as it were. And of course, as you said, 1972, Bob Cole called that Paul Henderson goal in '72 for CBC Radio. It doesn't get aired very much, but it was just ironic that Foster Hewitt had the television call, and the person that Bob Cole thought of the most was on the radio call.
When Bob Cole was a kid, he was playing soccer, hurt his knee, and was in the hospital for about 6 months. Spent a lot of time there listening to Foster Hewitt doing radio calls of Hockey Night in Canada, and dreamed of becoming a sports announcer. When he was 23 years old, Cole went from Newfoundland to Toronto to Foster Hewitt's office to present him with an audition tape. And I mean, it wouldn't happen today probably, but Hewitt invited him in, listened to his tape, and sat with him for 2 hours critiquing everything that he did on that tape and telling him how to be a better announcer and how to be a good announcer. And that was one of the things that, when you mentioned Foster Hewitt, listening to him do the '72 call on TV while Cole did it on the radio, it all went back to that meeting in 1956 when Bob Cole kind of audaciously presented himself to Foster Hewitt.
Absolutely. Some contributions from our Facebook group site, the Sports Lunatics show page. Steve Strong One of his favorite calls, of course, we mentioned 2002, the 5-2 goal. It's Joe Sakic. Sakic scores. Joe Sakic scores. Now 5-2 Canada. Surely that's got to be it. I remember where I was. I'm sure you remember where you were. It was one of the most remarkable sports moments that I remember, because there was so much hype going into that game in Salt Lake City, and Canada had such a great team. Uh, I was part of the team radio network that covered the Olympic Games at that point. We had the game on, of course, and that was led by Wayne Gretzky. That was such an incredible couple of weeks that I will never forget.
Just an up and down wild roller coaster of a couple of weeks. You're absolutely right, Shawnee.
Michael Fedor says, I remember his voice in NHL video games. And it's true. In some of the earlier NHL video games, Bob Cole was the voice in those games. Of course, I remember 93 Leafs Kings, Tom Wright talked about watching those broadcasts with Bob Cole on a 16-inch color Pulsar television in a makeshift tree house. So, that's what I mean. It was like it was Hockey Night in Canada, especially in that time before social media. It brought us all together, and it was like, that's what we talked about on Monday at work was, did you see what happened on Hockey Night in Canada? And of course, during the playoffs, you pretty much got every Canadian game there was. And then, of course, if the Canadian teams were out of it, Bob Cole was there in New York City when when the Rangers beat the Canucks to end their Stanley Cup drought. He was in Detroit when they ended their Stanley Cup drought. Just so many incredible moments that really galvanized the whole country and those fan bases. And Bob Cole was that voice.
April 6, 2019, Bob Cole's last Hockey Night in Canada game. It was Toronto and Montreal at the Bell Center. And it was kind of fitting because it was Ryan Poehling's first game. And in that game, Poehling had a hat trick and scored the shootout winner as well. And so that you had a kind of an interconnection between Bob Cole ending his career, Ryan Poehling beginning his career.
Howie, we'll wrap this up. We wanted just to do a quick video, share our thoughts. A sad day for all Canadian hockey fans, but also in these type of moments. And that's why, it's always great to look back at amazing careers that helped shape our sports life, especially in Canada. And there was no bigger than Bob Cole and what he meant to all of us coast to coast across Canada, and the hockey community who's in mourning today of losing such a broadcast legend. Again, Bob Cole, Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, dead at the age of 90. Stay tuned to thesportslunatics.com throughout the weekend, as we will have more on his passing, as well as please check out your favorite audio podcast for all of our Sports Lunatics episodes, and our YouTube channel, Sports Lunatics, where you can find us as well. Have a great sports day, everybody.